Hey, it's Aaron, and I guess we got to talk about them debates, don't we? So, last night there was, I believe, the final Democratic debate. Now, I've refrained from watching pretty much any more than about 10 minutes of any one of these debates this year, just because I can't be bothered to watch this fucking show any longer. The only one that's on stage that's worth a shit, that anybody should even consider paying attention to, is Bernie Sanders. Up until this point, I guess a few other people were making some waves: Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, that sort of thing. But outside of Bernie Sanders and those other people, really no one else is doing anything that interesting. But we have a whole bunch of people that are doing things that are extremely shady and kind of deceptive. Obviously, a lot of people have signed on to the Medicare for All bill and then found ways to weasel around that, and so forth and so on. So there's been a lot of shady bullshit that's been going on with these Democratic debates, and this was what I believe was the final debate. So fuck it, I had to watch it. And it definitely disappointed. And in fact, my expectations were extremely low, and it still was able to disappoint. All I seen the entire time was a bunch of wooden actors playing out their roles in this spectacle. And if you don't know what I mean by the spectacle, I'll leave a link in the description box below talking about exactly what I mean when I'm talking about the spectacle. But basically, this was all just a show to further some sort of agenda. Specifically, it could be the agenda of the deep state, of corporations, of whatever it is, hierarchies, big business, that sort of thing. And you can see it playing out in real time. One of the standout performances, and they very much were all performances, was Pete Buttigieg at the very end, was making some sort of final remark. And the way he said it was so unbelievably transparent that it was like shocking. He was saying something along the lines of, we need to vote for the Democratic candidate, specifically him, of course, because they need to defeat Donald Trump, the big bad, the monster in the White House. And he played up this role of Donald Trump being this monster, though he is a terrible, terrible person. He played him up as being this monster, this villain, this evil, horrible guy, as though Pete wouldn't be exactly that, right? Like, the guy is just the worst. And even though there might be some reforms, a little bit of good might be accomplished in the world, a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, if Pete was the president and not Donald J. Fuckhead Trump. But not enough that it would make any bit of difference at all. It was all just playing a part of that spectacle. But the star performance, I think, the Oscar-winning performance of the entire night went to Elizabeth Warren. Her, the things that she did within this debate was absolutely reprehensible and just shady. A lot of people went around online calling her a snake, though that can be a certain amount problematic because snakes were originally in the Bible used as a symbol to talk about how women specifically are bad, evil figures, though I don't think anybody really thought of that until the next day when everybody started hearing all of these things come out about snakes and that sort of thing. It's just another one of those smears against Bernie and the Bernie Sanders campaign. But I'm burying the lead here, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what what Elizabeth Warren did. So Elizabeth, the entire night, seemed like she was working with CNN in some sort of coordinated effort to destroy Bernie Sanders. And it was all having to do with this comment that apparently Bernie and Elizabeth had in private, somehow saying something along the lines of that a woman can't win the presidency. And this is how this went down. Now, literally, CNN, the host, asked Bernie Sanders, did you say to Elizabeth Warren that a woman can't win the presidency? And Bernie Sanders immediately said no. And immediately after that, the CNN host jumped to Elizabeth Warren and asked her, so when Bernie Sanders said this thing, what did you say to him? pretty difficult framing, isn't it? It sounds to me like CNN wasn't willing or interested in listening to Bernie Sanders actually tell his story about how this didn't even happen, or even listen to him say, no, this didn't happen. They just immediately jumped into the smear. But of course they did, because this being the final debate just before they go to election, they're trying to play up the same kind of thing that the English government did to Jeremy Corbyn. They're trying to find some smear, something that they can tarnish Bernie Sanders' record for, and they're going to attack him for that. And this is what they're going to try to use. And you can clearly see that. And her performance, Elizabeth Warren, was perfectly capped off. This, at the end, it was perfectly capped off with the Oscar-winning performance of her refusing to shake Bernie Sanders' hand and instead starting some sort of conflict with him at the very end yet again. And of course, that's all over everywhere right now. Why didn't they shake hands? They didn't shake hands. This is horrible, blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't shake hands because I think Elizabeth Warren has been having talks with other people, very high up individuals, possibly someone maybe from Hillary Clinton's campaign. That would make sense considering she was really playing up the I'm a woman angle all night long. And I think that some person in her campaign came up and said, you know what, strategy. You don't shake Bernie's hand at the end of this. You scold him for some reason. And then that's all everybody's going to talk about. And really, at the end of the day, who does this help? Now, I seen Kyle Kulinski make a point online last night saying that this might be a coordinated effort not only with CNN, but also with Joe Biden. That makes sense too, because Elizabeth Warren attacking Bernie Sanders is going to hurt herself, because even though they don't have a large overlap of supporters, they do have somewhat of an overlap of supporters, and it's going to make her look really bad blaming Bernie Sanders for all of this stuff. And for people that don't pay attention to politics, it's going to make Bernie Sanders look really bad because obviously Elizabeth Warren is accusing him of being sexist. So who does all this help? Joe fucking Biden. So anyway, this is why I don't pay attention to debates. This is why I listen very carefully and question every word that comes out of every politician's mouth, because it is inevitably just some sort of performance so they can gain more power or more control for themselves or the people that they work for. Anyway, that's the way I look at it. Thank you very much for watching. Try to have a wonderful day.